Okay. Boy, okay, this is an old video I made, but I've got some new meat. Cuz I can get some meat going on, right? I can find some interesting things actually. So we're going to look at okay, good. I'm live. I got kicked off of my live. Okay. Videos. I'm going to critique my own video here.
Congressman Mike Doyle and Congressman Chris Smith.
Okay, here we go.
Unfortunately, while doing some research today, I found out that Congressman Mike Doyle and Congressman Chris Smith have been claiming to run a autistic caucus for about 20 years that doesn't appear to actually exist. It just got real.
Oh, wow.
Howdy, I'm David.
So my teeth fell in half. My upper fell in half right in the middle. And I couldn't use it. And I was like, so I ended up going without teeth for a while, which was horrible. But
Page, I am a PDA autistic and ADHD. I also happen to be an American military veteran, which is where this story starts. I have gone to the Aurora main hospital there and so forth, and I found a lot of things that, for instance, there's no sensory room, and just being diagnosed at 50 and working with the VA, I'm finding it's extremely difficult. They are not prepared for autistic veterans yet. They don't have systems to provide earplugs, glasses that we need, counseling,
I was not speaking very well there.
psychiatrist, whatever, or even diagnostic abilities. So I'm working with them because they do have those assets, all of them, and all they need to do is consolidate them and know what they have so that they can serve autistic veterans better. So as far as I know, I'm the only one on this campaign right now, and hopefully it's successful. So I was doing a little bit of research on it. So I would like to take you on a journey with me, pretty much kind of how it went for me. So let's see if we can go there, if I can. There we go. All right. So the first thing I put in was Congress House Autism. Now what I'm thinking is well, you know what? Maybe there's some congressman or whatever that has a kid or a nephew or whatever that is autistic, so maybe they might have a little bit of interest in it. Maybe it might help me, even if they're not for my state or district. It might be helpful. So I typed in these keywords, Congress House Autism, and look at this. I'm so excited. Look at this. Look at this. Autism Caucus. There's a real Autism Caucus. Really? Oh my goodness. I can't wait. Okay. I'm truly excited.
Look at that. There's a website and everything.
Congressman Mike Doyle. Oh, okay. Autism Caucus. Here we go. This is the main page here. Okay, great. We got Autism Caucus. There's 180 members of Congress. Holy hell! Their goals are they're going to increase awareness about autism among members of Congress, blah, 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 educating members of Congress, serving as a forum where autism-related policy issues can be discussed. I'm breezing over this because it's pretty much BS. Bringing together public, private, government entities to pursue legislative initiatives that will help facilitate. This sounds so amazing. I wish it was real. Promoting all means to ease the burdens of families and loved ones affected. What about the autistic people? They're only compared.
I'm kind of wasting my time here, but the thing is what I'm discovering here is that there is not an autism caucus at all.
Concerned about the family and loved ones. Who cares about the autistic people? I guess we don't count as people. But anyway, I digress. I want to thank each one. Okay, so here's more on Autism Caucus. This is basically like their press release. Now, if you look, we have one here in 2020, which has to do with COVID, and then we go back to 19.
So I made this last year.
This all has to do with a law that those two gentlemen basically pushed through the Congress or whatever to get signed, and it was authorized.
It's the CARES Act.
It's a pretty small bill. I didn't see anything particularly significant about it. It looked like more of a, oh, we're going to do some research, we're going to do this and that, and there's just no substance that I could see.
And none of that research has ever been named. It's just research.
Or any published results from where that money went to. I can't find it. Nowhere. So anyway, I'm like, well, heck. Okay, this guy's the Autism Caucus guy, so I'm going to contact him. You know, we're going to email. Yeah, email me. So according to this, I have to fill out this email form. So I put in my zip code here. Go to the next step. Watch the magic happen. What? You see, because I'm not from Pennsylvania, and I'm an autistic person, even though I'm trying to get a hold of the Autistic Caucus, and this is literally directly where you're sent to get a hold of the Autistic Caucus, I am not eligible being an autistic person because I'm not from Pennsylvania. First red flag. So I decided, well, let's look up about the Autism
It gets weird here.
Caucus meetings. So I put in the Autism Caucus meetings. Here we go again.
You got to understand, this is the United States Autism Caucus. You know, this is a big deal. Oops.
Oh, okay. Now here is a membership list. This is 165. This is older. Now, I guarantee you, every single one of these representatives were like, I support autistic people on my bio too. And so they did. But I have no idea why I did that impersonation. I just like making fun of people. Isn't that horrible? I'm autistic. I shouldn't do that. Anyway, I don't give a shit. So that's probably what happened here. And the reason this is, you'll see. So I wanted to find out about the Autism Caucus briefings. Let's see here. I put in Autism Caucus meetings and whoops. Okay, so I'm going backwards here. I
don't know what I'm looking at.
Okay, so the only thing I could find here was this Congressional Autism Caucus briefing.
I haven't looked at this since I made it.
Now, this is really interesting. This is oh, come on, stop being stupid, computer. A 1-hour session with 3 speakers in a tiny little office somewhere in the Capitol. There is no press release. There is literally no indication that Chris Smith or Mike Doyle showed up to this thing. The only indication I have here is that these 3 people were here. There was another similar type thing available on YouTube in 2015, and the audio is really bad. They only showed 4 people, and it was a very small room, and it echoed really bad. So you can tell nobody was there. And by the way that they're grouped together when they show these people, it's like, what? So these are the only Congressional Autism Caucus.
What you've got to understand is when you try to talk to the people at the Autism Caucus, there is no Autism Caucus. There's no one to talk to, no one to answer emails, nothing. Right now, it used to go through Mike Doyle, but he's no longer an official since last year. Now it goes through Chris Smith's office, but it still does not exist. They don't do anything.
Meetings or briefings or anything listed at all.
Now I haven't looked this up, and I have not looked them up in the last year or so, but I did see a little bit something about Mike Doyle doing another thing for the ACE Act, wanting to renew it because it's supposed to expire this September. So this is why this is coming up.
Now, what is a caucus? A caucus is a a group of congressmen that get together, specifically get together to accomplish a specific goal for a specific reason, like Hispanic issues or autistic issues, whatever. These are the only two things. Basically, like a little 1 hour cinemas that nobody went to. There are no minutes. There is no anything. There's no address. Oh, here we go. Here's that right there. Now, you're not going to really be able to hear this very well. I'm going to try. It is so horrible. Okay, you can't hear the sound there, but it's echoing really bad. You can find this on your own, and you can hear that nobody's in here. I think this is a dad talking to these people. So it's a very, very small group. Oh, there's 4 or 5 people. Wow. So it's really scary. It's really, really scary. So let's see. So I went to Congress. I'm still searching around here. Let's see what I was pulling up here. Oh, this is the bomb. This is the bomb. Let's go back here. The only organization that I could possibly find that had any support for Mike Doyle and Chris Smith was, guess it? Yes, Autism Speaks. Now, that's a huge red flag. It's kind of like this. Think of it this way. If a organization or people support the KKK, that's a very bad thing.
Oh, I got to be careful with okay. I got to be careful with
if the KKK supports certain organizations, they are to be held in question, definitely, particularly if they're being very public about it. Now, anyone in the autistic community knows that most autistic people hate Autism Speaks. You go to autism Facebook groups, most of the adult autism Facebook groups actually ban you from speaking about Autism Speaks at all. That is how much this organization is hated. And yet, here they are.
It doesn't speak for me either.
Yet there's no other autistic organization that has any affiliation or any contact that I could find whatsoever with this supposed caucus. All right, so this is the only other thing that I could find on the Autism Caucus, and that's it. It's another thing. This again comes from one of their websites. I think it was a coalition education one. That's it. That's all you get. Oh, we want to, okay. Is your representative a member of the Autism Caucus? Wow, this is amazing. We can find out who. Let's go.
Oops.
Once again on Mike Doyle's site here.
And
you see a pattern here? I cannot find any minutes for any meetings. I cannot find any references to any meetings. I cannot find a post office box, a phone number, an email, anything whatsoever to contact anyone for this supposed caucus. There's no website, nothing. Now, let me see here. Let's take a look at a legitimate caucus. Contact us. Oh, look at this. Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Email us. Now, I actually tried this, and this does work. I sent them a nice little message, said thank you for not being like the Autistic Caucus. Look at this. We got an address, a phone number, all kinds of stuff. Now, look at this media center. October 14th, 22. There's all kinds of stuff that these people are doing. Economic contributions. There's another one I saw down here that was kind of cool. National Museum for American Latinos. They're doing things for Latino people like they're supposed to do. There is nothing that you can find that this Autistic Caucus has done for anything except for pass these bills that just never heard of. I think they're really insignificant. I think what this entire thing is, here's another one. Let's see, who's it? Oh, this is Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you here that he claims he was a founder of this, and for 21 years he's been a member of this congressional caucus here. 21 years he's claiming this. And then you have this list of all these other people that just wanted to join in. But you know what? Obviously, they don't give a crap about autism either. And I absolutely encourage you to look at this list here and see if any of these people are your people, because these people are wholeheartedly full of shit. If they were actually interested in this caucus, they would know that it didn't exist and it doesn't do anything. What these people want is to put that they're a member of the Autistic caucus on their bio. If these people were legit, they would have gotten their names stricken from this automatically. And this is actually up to date. Wow, that's really scary. So I'm going to be doing much more. Here's our culprit. The proud face of a person who is manipulating the public and literally scamming autistic people.
I think I would present it. I was not used to doing short form at this time. I did the long form. And I think I would present it much better now. I think I need to redo that into like a 2 or 3 minute video.
Because I had legitimate needs. I needed the caucus, if it actually exists.
But it literally is used. And I challenge you. I challenge you to look up the caucus right now. You know what I'm saying?
Existed to help me with these veterans issues. But it doesn't exist. I can't get a hold of anyone. I talked to Doyle's representative. I was like, if I actually was able to get through a number in Washington D.C. and get a hold of his little cronies, and I told him, I said, look, this is supposedly the only way to get a hold of this caucus, and I am not eligible to even contact it because I'm not from Pennsylvania. And he's like, oh, well, that is very concerning. I'll look into that and I'll give you yeah, whatever. Flat brass tacks. Mike Doyle.
I called him back, and I thought I don't know, I thought I had put this in here, but I called him back several months later, and I was like, yeah, I just want to talk to whoever's at the office of the Autism Caucus. And they're like, oh, we'll just, they're not in right now. We'll just take a message. I was like, okay, well then fine. Can I have an email? Oh, well, you just send it to Mike Doyle's. Okay, our Christmas email. I was like, okay, well, can I have the name of the person to contact? Oh, just, we'll take care of that. And I was like, okay, you know, I just would really like, to send them a t-shirt. What's their address? Well, just send it to. I was like, you know what? You're so full of shit. We both know the Autism Caucus doesn't exist. I got real quiet and I hung up.
Chris Smith and all of these people, a lot of these people, I would like to call them victims. But if this had been around for 20 years and they did not...
Oh, by the way, that is not how you handle people. Do not do as I say.
Look into this to find out that it's legitimate, that they haven't done anything but pass minor bills. Another thing is, there is no indication that any autistic people had any input whatsoever into these bills. Just saying. Can't find it. I mean, if I was a congressman and I was passing bills for Latinos, I'm a white guy, I would just brag and bring the Latinos in and do press conferences and everything, and do everything to let my constituents know that I am representing everybody. But no, not here. Not happening. They don't even care. These people have not even looked into this caucus. Not one of these people have ever, to what I can find online, have ever attended a meeting. There has never been a meeting, as far as I can tell, from the Autism Caucus. It's also called CARE. I forget what they call it. Congressional. What's it called? Congressional. Something for researchers.
Well, I can see it right here. It says Autism Caucus Briefing, Congressional Caucus
Or
Briefing.
something.
Is that what you're talking about?
Uh,
Or are you just being facetious? Like, is it even there?
Advancement in research or some kind of crap like that. Um, it's all bogus.
Yeah, that's
So
what I thought.
I'd like to know what your thoughts are on this.
No, cool. It's
And
funny.
I think I'm going to be signing off because I'm really sick here. This is David Page. Screw them. Slap harder.
Yeah, and so I think I need to follow up on that. I think I definitely need to follow up, but I am going to take a quick break because I need to. I want to see how this my break works anyway. I haven't tried this before. So I will be right back. Now I'm back. Okay, cool. So, let me put my cameras back on. Um, the other thing that kind of, I mean, I can run all these cameras and stuff. The problem is I have to do them all individually, and I'm running 4 programs at the same time. So I just have to name things the same thing or whatever, to get everything working like it should. Okay. So I'm going to go to news here. No, I want this one. Actually, I'm just going to go, yeah, that's good enough. I'm going to go to news and see if anything popped up today, because it is, what is the date today anyway? It's the 15th. It's the middle of April, Autism Awareness Acceptance Month. As I like to say, Autism Voice Month. News. Here's news. I don't know anything about this. We're going at it. Okay, so starting right off, we've got all different color hands. So we're doing multi-ethnicity, KRPCE2. No idea where this is out of. Exclusive furniture where low prices live. Houston Christian University. I wonder what city it could be in. So this is probably coming out of Houston, Texas. That's where I was born, in Houston. And that's how you say it, Houston. Say Houston, Texas. There's no H. It's Houston. It's like you go, but it's not a H sound. It's Houston. Houston, Texas.
Welcome back to Houston Life. April is World
Houston
Autism
Let's
Month.
see how she said it. Houston. She said more of an H though.
Welcome back to Houston Life. April is World Autism
She's not a native.
Month, and KPRC2, along with our community partners at Energy Transfer, Houston Christian University, and Exclusive Furniture, want to spotlight a nonprofit organization making a difference right here in our community.
Yeah, it sure does. Autism Speaks provides resources for families with...
Okay, so notice how the subject is always Autism Speaks. Always, always, always Autism Speaks. It's not the people. Can everybody hear me? Is this working everywhere? Is this going? Because it looks like I'm not doing anything over there. Well, I guess I am a little bit. Okay.
Houston Life. April is World Autism Month, and KPRC2, along with our community partners at Energy Transfer, Houston Christian University, and Exclusive Furniture, want to spotlight a nonprofit organization.
So we're talking about Houston Furniture. Okay, I don't have a closed caption thing.
Making a difference right here in our community.
Yeah, it sure does. Autism Speaks provides resources for families with love.
See how they have the little buttons? They have the actual buttons for Autism Speaks. That means they got a packet from Autism Speaks for this story. So what they're going to do is they're going to be spitting out word for word garbage that comes from Autism Speaks. Watch. And they're also going to focus on Autism Speaks rather than autistic people. And they're not going to qualify autistic people as being an expert in anything.
Living on the spectrum. Joining us now, Michelle Aubin, Autism Speaks Houston Executive Leadership Council member, and Meredith Williams, a volunteer with Autism Speaks Houston. Welcome to you both. Glad to have you here. Meredith, you have a very personal connection.
Yep.
Tell us about your son, who's 13 years old.
My son Alex is 13. He was diagnosed just before his 3rd birthday. He was speech delayed. We knew that. But I did not expect the autism diagnosis. I didn't quite understand autism at the time. And then I did what everybody does. I went online and dug around. I'm like, okay, let me look, let's see what's really going on.
And guess what happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. The first thing she landed on was Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks said they had all the answers, and they did kind of lead her in a little bit of a direction, and then all of a sudden, bam. She got sucked into the whole cult thing.
A little great for the doctors after a while. But in that, I found Autism Speaks. They have a 100 days packet for people who are newly diagnosed. And
Well, they do, but it doesn't do anything really. And you'll get better advice from the autistic community. If you get involved in a Facebook group or something, you're newly diagnosed, I don't care how old you are. You have a support system there 24 hours a day. There's always somebody watching those things in those chat rooms and stuff. And if you have something come up, no matter what, you have an expert or you have a group of experts, autistic experts. And people, because they're autistic, a lot of times their autism itself, like myself, becomes a special interest or a hyper focus. I'm ADHD also. Moving right along.
it's steps to take to help them, whatever they need. There are a lot of things that you don't know go with autism. There's other health issues that go with autism. There's speech, there's occupational therapy, there's physical therapy. And I didn't realize all of these other issues that...
No, there's comorbidities. That's different types of therapy that go with the comorbidities, like our dyspraxia, or a tendency to not kind of know where we are in time and space and kind of trip and fall and stuff like that. The fact that we all have stomach issues. The fact that a lot of us have epilepsy or narcolepsy like I do, or RLS, or ADHD, or Ehlers-Danlos, or Tourette sometimes schizophrenia, just audio processing disorder, POTS, so many things
might pop up with autism. And so that packet really helped me get started to help him.
Wow. And you're one of many people, right? And like Michelle, your connection to it is that you have a cousin diagnosed, an aunt recently diagnosed, and you are a huge fundraiser. This is a cause that's really near
and what I say,
and dear to you.
That is not good. What I say is, if you have a friend, if you have a family member that's diagnosed as autistic, wherever they are in the family, even if their in-laws are steps, you might want to consider looking in to see if you're diagnosed with autism. Now, I know that sounds crazy. If your friend was diagnosed as autistic, you might want to get checked. The reason is because autistic people, one, is genetic. And two, we tend to gravitate towards each other a lot. As such, like when I discovered I was autistic, I realized that probably 70% of the people that I've really liked and spent most of my time with were autistic in my life. Considering it's only about 1% of the population, that is an extraordinarily high amount of people around me. And I've talked to a lot of autistic people that when I say that same thing, that if you have a family member or a friend diagnosed, I have not had one autistic person correct me and say, nah, that doesn't mean, nah, they shouldn't. They have not at all disputed that. So that really does tell you a lot in itself.
Why is it so important to you? You've been with Autism Speaks for 15 years now, raising money.
Yeah, the amazing thing about Autism Speaks is they want to be better than they were yesterday at supporting families and loved ones. So
no, they don't. And the reason is because if you look at their site, the tone is still geared towards parents and family members, siblings, caretakers, and still addresses autistic people as if it's a disease. And they still are funding millions and millions and millions of dollars into scientific research that's not specified. Not on their financials, they're not. They just give it away to other institutions, and then who knows what happens, right? Of course, that was money that people were giving, thinking that that money was going to go directly to help autistic people. Instead, it was put towards genocide. A organization whose purpose was genocide, and is still, that's why they were doing genetic research, and they are still pumping money into genetic research to this day. That's not getting better. Are you kidding me? Really?
and it goes all the way straight from inception to when you find out through the rest of your life. So trying to get a job, trying to go through college, trying to go through adulthood, find an apartment, and they not only wrap their arms around the actual people who are on the spectrum, but also the families themselves as well.
And that's a huge burden for a lot of families to carry, because this is something, I'm sure, Meredith, in your case, when the diagnosis comes, and on one hand, you're probably relieved to find out what's going on, but on the other hand, you know that it's going to be tough, right? So in addition, Meredith, to the resources you've been able to connect with, is it just finding community that makes such a big difference?
Yeah, absolutely. We all share our stories with each other. We all, okay, well, I tried this. Well, I tried this. Every person on the spectrum is different, but at least you have a direction to go. You have something to try. Alex has made so many friends through Autism Speaks.
I'm one of his friends.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you always have Raising Cane's, so.
That's right.
And that's good. I mean,
okay, it's all about Autism Speaks.
Knowing that you're not alone seems to me like it would be one of the hugest, benefits, the biggest benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, at first, I didn't know anybody else whose child had autism, and I was like, I don't know what to.
Had autism. Had autism, as if it's a disease. Did everybody catch that? Listen to how she says it, and it doesn't even faze her. Watch.
And that's good. I mean, just knowing that you're not alone seems to me like it would be one of the hugest, benefits, the biggest benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, at first, I didn't know anybody else whose child had autism, and I was like,
She's like, well, actually, it's about the kids, about the autistic people knowing that they're not alone, not us. We're neurotypical people, and we can deal with the world a lot easier because most people are neurotypical. But no, it should really be about the kid and their experience, or the adult now, because they grow up, and actually 3/4, 75% of autistics are actually adults. And only 25%, just like the rest of the population, are kids. Actually, there might be a little bit less adults than in the autistic population due to accidents and so forth. There's reasons that autistic people die younger than allistic people, that is, people who are not autistic. A lot of it has to do with, the number one cause is unlifing themselves, which my son, who's 22, he took his life last October at 22 years old. He was autistic and had alexithymia, and He's a lot of the reason why I'm here right now.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help him. I don't know how to help him have friends. I don't know how to do this. And then they're like, oh, well, here, I tried this. And I was like, okay, cool, thanks. That's so helpful. And then my first walk that I went to, we found tons of resources, and everybody there was just so nice. There was so much going on, and everybody was like, oh, no, try this, do this. It was really great.
Michelle, as someone who has been on the board and working with this, how have things changed from when you started 15 years ago to now? Because it's constantly, thankfully, evolving and innovating, and you're making more and more connections and friends. What is the biggest difference, you think?
I think in the initial stages, it was all about early diagnosis, right? And that was just knowing what's in front of you. And now it's about, okay, how do we get through life? How do we have quality of life? Both, again, for someone on the spectrum and for the family themselves. So they've really nourished, people and wrapped their arms around them to really make sure that they're not just dealing with the diagnosis, but they're thriving in that.
Okay, Raising Cane's, we can see the little, accessory wearing the Raising Cane's. Let's talk about the involvement with Raising Cane's, because it's been many years since they got involved, and they've really had an impact on the community.
Yeah, so I've been involved for 15 years.
Okay, I want to see this again. This is very interesting.
Try do this. It was really great. Yeah.
Michelle, as someone who has been on the board and working with this, how have things changed from when you started 15 years ago to now? Because it's constantly, thankfully, evolving and innovating, and you're making more and more connections and friends. What is the biggest difference, you think?
I think in the initial stages, it was all about early diagnosis, right? And that
who's it all about right now? It's all about these people.
Was just knowing what's in front of you, and now it's about, okay, how do we get through life? How do we have quality of life? Both, again, for someone on the spectrum and for the family themselves.
See? She's worried about me.
So they've really nourished, people and wrapped their arms around them to.
They really brainwashed and indoctrinated people into a way of thinking about disabled people that agrees with them, that is extremely ableist and dangerous to autistic people, to people with mental illnesses. This kind of mentality is what gets us unlifed by society. Why it's okay for police to unlife autistics and nothing ever happens. Well, they were autistic. I got scared, so I just unlifed them. Okay, well that was a good shoot.
Really make sure that they're not just dealing with the diagnosis, but they're thriving.
And ladders, chutes and ladders, what I was talking about.
In that.
Okay, Raising Cane's, we can see the little, accessory wearing the Raising Cane's.
Now see this picture? All these young folks, this is probably what they're thinking is getting laborers. They're not thinking about human beings. They're not thinking of talent. They're looking at laborers. They see autistic people as laborers.
Let's talk about the involvement with Raising Cane's, because it's been many years since they got involved, and they've really had an impact on the community.
Yeah, so I've been involved for 15 years. I've been with Raising Cane's 3 years, so I've taken them on the journey with me.
See the blue and the puzzle piece?
We've raised about $30,000 in the last 3 years, and then we're a part of the walks, we're a part of the runs, Autism Speaks Gala. We always have a special free canes for a year and some retail associated with that to raise money. So we're involved in any way, shape, or form.
And these are the organizations I sent those emails to.
Oh,
we can't.
So free canes for you.
Not this one. I don't think they're part of this anymore.
Here, that's like a silent auction item.
It is,
Or
actually.
maybe they are, or maybe they're brand
Big
new.
ticket item, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They're not listed by Autism Speaks. Houston, I don't think.
There's always a pillow or a blanket involved.
No, they're not listed.
Well, the city loves to eat. They love Raising Cane's. They love to eat, which is why this event you're doing.
It's because it's a university and not a major corporate sponsor.
The Chef Gala is so important because it's different chefs, and what can people expect if they come to the Chef Gala Houston?
Yeah, so we have over 15 chefs who actually are working with a sous chef who's on the spectrum.
Wow.
And so they serve up, all anything from...
We've got vegan, barbecue, seafood, everything.
Oh, wow. We love that. Something for everyone. So this is something that you can see the info on your screen right now. It's happening Saturday, April 27th, Bayou Music Center. So tables and tickets.
What did he just say?
It's happening Saturday, April 27th, Bayou Music Center. So tables and tickets are still available. And what I think is great about this organization, Autism Speaks, is something that I've been involved with in the past. I have friends whose children are on the spectrum. And whether or not you have that direct personal connection, maybe a family member, everyone can get involved. And the gala is a great way to do it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. You have your information there. Of course, you can check it out on our website. But Michelle Aubin and Meredith Williams, thank you so much.
The way he said bayou, it was very, very Louisiana.
Get involved with Autism Speaks. You want to learn more about their work in the community. All you have to do is visit clicktohouston.com.
All right. Boy, this sun is just... I thought the sun was going to dissipate there for a bit, but I guess not. I'll have to put this down for a little bit anyway. Maybe this will do it. Okay, so that way the sun's not in my face. All right, it's still kind of in my face. Jeez. So does anyone have any questions, or is there anything that anyone wants to know what I've been or any questions about anything at this time? Okay. So I'm going to go right on down the list here. It's 6:07. I think I'm going to go. Let me see something. I think I might have a friend that's on right now. And I might just pop off of here for a bit.
From 4 o'clock back.
No. No. I'm trying to see if I've got somebody live here. I don't think I do. Okay. Let me see something. All right. StreamYard. Cool. All right, I'm going to look at this section. What is autism? What is autism? This is sponsored. No, we're not going to that. We're not. No, we're not. We're not going to that. That's a sponsored thing. Oh, okay. Maybe we got some videos, maybe? Something new? I think I'm going to go ahead and go another 50 minutes or so. Just put the word autism and see what happens. See if anything new's been put in there since this last month, maybe. Oh, howdy, Neil. I'm just looking at random stuff right now. Imposter syndrome, late diagnosis. 10 things autistic people don't experience. Should I look at that? Maybe or you're not autistic, you're just different. I remember seeing that one already. Therapy can be harmful. That's 5 days ago. Yeah. That's Yosemite Sam. Challenges in the concept of autism. Okay. All right. Orion Kelly's winning on this one.
Imposter syndrome is common for late diagnosed autistic people, but I'm here to change that with 10 things autistic people don't experience. Welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. Imposter syndrome and autism. Something as a late diagnosed autistic person I can really resonate with.
I've never experienced it because I had never had any doubt. I never wondered for a minute. You're a little scared. That salt. I have pot, so I have to have salt. If that's what you're talking about. So I was getting some salt. But I never wondered. It dawned on me I was autistic, and as soon as it did, there was no question after that, ever.
But some may ask, sorry, what is imposter syndrome? Well, in basic terms, imposter syndrome is basically described as a behavioral phenomenon. In other words, not like a medically diagnosed condition. And this phenomenon, known as imposter syndrome, is often described as a sense of self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments amongst people who cannot internalize their success and subsequently experience pervasive feelings like self-doubt, anxiety, depression, and something that tends to resonate deeply with late diagnosed autistic people, an apprehension of being exposed. But this is important to point out. This is a feeling, an apprehension of being exposed as a fraud despite verifiable and objective evidence to the contrary. So there's verifiable, objective
top 10
evidence.
List. Yeah, I'm never going to do a top 10 list.
Go against our feeling that we are a fraud, yet we can't shake that feeling. Imposter syndrome in a nutshell. And I would hazard a guess to say most people living on the planet will feel this at some point in their life. It may be as a result of the job they're in, or the group they're in, or the activity they're doing, or a type of accomplishment.
Come on, get to it, buddy.
But for late diagnosis...
TikTok's killed me because, like, these people kill me now when I go back to YouTube because they're just talking, and I'm like, dude, just, like, say something.
Those autistic people, this feeling of imposter...
And I used to do the same thing.
Imposter syndrome can be even more intense. Why, you may ask? Okay, well, let's make a list together. Let's say you're a late diagnosed autistic person. In other words, you were born autistic, you lived a large portion of your life undiagnosed.
The tension in me about to click off.
Unrecognized as an autistic person. You finally are provided the opportunity, which is a miracle, by the way. The costs, the waiting time, the access to professionals that actually know what they're talking about. It isn't just water off a duck's back. Masking. You've masked your entire life. In other words, you can be invalidated from all sorts.
So it's masking.
Real understanding. No real experience.
I'm done. I'm done too. I'm done. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. I can't do it, dude. Sorry, man. You're not autistic. You're just different.
That's me, Colt Sievers. And this is my hero's journey.
Holy hell.
We're just start from the top.
Wow.
Okay, I'm not the hero of this.
So I recently did a...
Okay, so my these headphones are for gaming, and they've got the 7 point whatever it is Dolby, so they got speakers that go all the way around to simulate sound all the way around you, and that commercial was amazing.
Video talking about why online it sometimes feels as if it's autistic people versus parents of autistic children, which is sad, and I wish it wasn't that way. But within that video, I responded to some comments made by Christine, who is the mother of one of the cast members on Love on the Spectrum, Abby. A lot of people within the autistic community.
Oh boy, here's Abby. I don't know anything about this, but yet I'm going to have to comment on it.
Quite hurt by what she said. Basically, it sounded like she's unhappy with lower support needs autistic people being labelled as autistic. She wants the autism label to be left to those she considers to be truly disabled, I suppose. But after posting that, I worried that my response was a little bit harsh. I was kind of thinking about, well, how would I be if I was, under the spotlights on Jubilee? And obviously it's, an edited video. But then last week, I saw that she had posted this video on TikTok. And she's basically doubled down on what she said in the Jubilee video and maybe even gone a bit further. So her views on the subject are now very clear. Before I look at the TikTok and we respond to it, I just want to say that this is not meant to be some sort of hate video aimed at Christine, Abby's mom. I don't want anyone to go after her or anything like that. I'm sure nobody who watches my channel would do that. But this video isn't really about Abby's mom. It's not really targeted at her. I think she's voicing opinions that a lot of people hold to varying extents. Some people do have this idea that lower support needs autistic people shouldn't be taking up space on the spectrum, basically, and that we're taking something from other autistic people by doing so. So she made this TikTok in response to a comment that said, wondering your opinion.
Ew, a little scary.
On why there are so many kids with autism versus years ago, or am I way off? Love y'all, by the way.
Okay, that's a big question. Why do I think that there's more people being diagnosed than years ago in the autism world? And this is just my opinion after 2 decades kind of watching what's been happening.
It's them lizard people in the government. That's what it is. Them lizard people in the government. I've seen them myself, You got a cigarette?
Happening.
Before we go any further, I just want to say I don't think Abby's mom, Christine, I know she works full time, I don't think she's any sort of medical professional as far as I'm aware. I think she's speaking from her experience of being a parent of just one autistic child, as far as I'm aware. And I suppose she's been...
And that's the thing. And that's why I say this so much. How many generations? My grandmother was more than likely autistic. My mother was definitely autistic. I'm autistic. My children were autistic. I have one grandchild that might be autistic. We're talking generations of experience there. And I have experiences, as being a child, a father, a husband, a brother, you know what I mean? A dad, grandfather. So I have a lot of experience, but they don't qualify. Yeah, they don't qualify us as having any experience or any understanding of ourselves. Instead, they're the experts.
Been involved in autism communities with probably other parents of autistic children for the last 20 years.
And I'm not saying anything about this girl. She's cool.
Abby is neurodeficit, and a lot of people getting diagnosed today are neurodifferent.
So in order to be diagnosed, you have...
What's a neuro... There's not a such thing as neurodeficit. I think she's trying to say ID. Intellectual disabilities.
To be perceived as having a deficit. Everyone who is diagnosed today, if the DSM-5 was used and the ICD-11 is very similar, everyone will...
It suggests it's subjective.
Tick the boxes for persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction. The extent to which they struggle may vary because it is a spectrum. The technical name is currently autism spectrum disorder for a reason. And this is why people are often assigned a level of support needs when they are diagnosed as well. Either requires support, requires substantial support, or requires very substantial support. I don't feel like the current DSM-5 implies that every autistic person is the same in any way. However, Abby's mom is correct that the number of children being diagnosed keeps increasing. In the year 2000, it was around 1 in 150. Now it's around 1 in 36 children who are diagnosed, according to the CDC. And there's a lot of different reasons for why more people are being diagnosed. That
was from, I think, 2021, the 1 in 36.
more awareness and understanding. Also, it is true that more children who don't have an intellectual disability are being diagnosed. So she might be right that more people who are considered lower support needs are being diagnosed today. Before 2000, estimates suggested up to 75% of ASD children had an intellectual disability. Recent studies...
Wow, I did not know that. I heard that it was the other way around, that a third of us basically had intellectual disabilities. However, that being said, I think I've even said it to you today. I know I've said it today, but I think I said it to you today, Neil, that I have certain intellectual disabilities, but I wouldn't be considered having intellectual disabilities, even though I do. And I've also found out that a lot of autistic people are simply slower learners, slower at picking things up. Like a lot slower. But once we get it, then just get out of my way. And another thing is this: if someone tells if there's a task, this is essential for autistic people. If there's a task, say, okay, this is the end result. We need this car to be built and driven to this location, or to get to this location. We need it fixed and at this location. That's all you have to do. Now you can say, now I've got a truck here, I've got a trailer, or we've got money, we can, or whatever, and start giving options of ways to go get all that done. But let the autistic person go from there, because they may not do it the same way that you do it. They might do it, but they'll probably discuss it with you if you're willing to discuss it. But they're probably they're very likely to find very inventive ways of getting things done that nobody else thinks of. Not because we're smarter, but because we think very differently. And sometimes that does definitely make it appear like we're super duper smart. But if everybody thought the way we do, and it was the other way around, and we thought like neurotypicals, then we would look really smart there too, being in the minority, because we'd only be the only ones, thinking that way. So it's just how that works.
Being diagnosed keeps increasing. In the year 2000, it was around 1 in 150. Now it's around 1 in 36 children who are diagnosed, according to the CDC. And there's a lot of different reasons for why more people are being diagnosed. There's more awareness and understanding. Also, it is true that more children who don't have an intellectual disability are being diagnosed. So she might be right that more people who are considered lower support needs are being diagnosed today. Before 2000, estimates suggested up to 75% of ASD children had an intellectual disability. Recent studies report 30 to 40% of ASD children have an intellectual disability, indicating better identification of children with ASD.
Okay, 30 to 40%. Okay.
Without intellectual disability. I don't view that as a negative personally, because low or lower support needs does not mean no support needs. Most people who slip through the cracks,
even your high support needs people, have support needs. And the thing is like, I was a correctional officer for 15 years. Okay? My wife drove a Cadillac and I drove a nice Camaro. God, it was a nice Camaro. It was a convertible. It was beautiful. Anyway, and we had a farm and all this. We were successful, quote. That's the point I'm trying to get across. And she had to do certain things like pay bills. I didn't pay the bills. I put money in our bank account and just let her deal with it because it was so difficult for me. So in that way, she made up for me, and that was how she supported me, was she took care of the bills. And my wife now does the same thing. And my first wife, I've been married 3 times. My first wife did the same thing, and she's ADHD for sure, and I wouldn't have been surprised if she was autistic.
Do not sail through life with no issues. A lot of undiagnosed autistic people really struggle with their mental health. They may have eating disorders, they may be diagnosed or misdiagnosed with a personality disorder, and they may spend some time institutionalized because of it. We also know that masking or covering up your autistic traits in order to seem less autistic, and also going unsupported, having no accommodations, both of those things are linked to mental health issues and also potentially taking your own life. for autistic people. I would agree that not all autistic people are equally disabled in all areas. That is why it's a spectrum.
Neurodifferent means you didn't need speech and OT.
But where is the need for speech therapy in the diagnostic criteria? It's not there. Now, would Abby's mom consider an autistic person who has a PhD and who works as a professor at Cambridge, would she consider them neurodeficit or neurodifferent? I'm guessing she would probably say they're the definition of somebody who's just neurodifferent, except from Jason Arday, who is the youngest black professor at Cambridge, didn't speak until he was 11 and didn't learn to read until he was 18. He had a lot of support in speech therapy, so I'm guessing she'd be happy to call him neurodeficit.
And the thing is a lot of times, like I said before, people mature. When people grow from age 3 to age 6 or 7 or 8, there is a big difference in the maturity no matter what. And no matter what, whether the kid is autistic or not, between 3 and 9 or 8 or whatever it is, they're likely to speak. My son did. Without any speech therapy. I did teach him to speak specifically probably when he was about 7, because that's right before he went to school. He skipped a year. He stayed back a year before he went to school because basically his mom recognized that he wasn't ready to go. We didn't suspect that he was autistic or anything else, but he had epilepsy and stuff like that, and I think we both kind of wrote it off to that.
Deficit? A professor at Cambridge?
Need more time to file your taxes this year? Get a free 6-month IRS tax extension.
Okay, this is where it kind of falls apart. Autism is weird and complicated, and people present in such different ways. That's why we have the spectrum, because it is incredibly difficult to pin down specific profiles. The DSM-5 does leave room at the end for a clinician to specify whether the diagnosis is being made what they call with or without a language impairment. Also, what about the people who would have really benefited from speech therapy?
And what's that language impairment? Is that like a speech impediment like I have, like when I stutter? Or is that not being able to communicate? I hate how subjective their stuff is. And even if you said not being able to communicate, that's going to be subjective too, according to the person who is there doing the interview.
But they weren't from an affluent area. This one study showed people from affluent areas were 80% more likely to be diagnosed as autistic. Just because you...
And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, because a lot of autistic people tend to go towards tech, and tech makes more money. And it isn't that they go towards tech because it makes money. It's just because that's how their minds work. And then, of course, when you have people, like I said, if you have an uncle or a friend or whatever else, autistic people bring each other together. What if I just yell at people? Is that speech impairment? Yeah, probably. And, I do that too. I actually do that. I don't know if you do that, but I actually do. I get really upset sometimes. And because of the alexithymia, all the emotions come out all at once. And they get pissed off at me, and I'm screaming at them, telling them I can't help it. And they're like, well, just stop. I'm like, if I could, I would. You think that I think this is going to help me? Yeah. You think that I think this is going to help me screaming at you for help and looking like I'm a threat? You think I think that's going to help? You think I can help that? You think I want to do that? It's like turning into a damn werewolf. You think I want to turn into a werewolf and go eat people?
You didn't access something, or you weren't able to access something, doesn't mean that you didn't need it and it wouldn't have positively benefited your life and the outcomes. It just means you didn't get it.
Neurodifferent means you didn't need speech and OT and all kinds of therapies and music therapy.
You need music therapy, guys. If you haven't had music therapy, I'm sorry to say you are not autistic. Your diagnosis has been retracted now by Christine. Not everybody wants or needs the same supports as Abby. Abby. Abby is not the definition of autism. She is an autistic person, but she is one autistic person.
You didn't need an aide to go to school, and you didn't get pulled out of school to go to an autism school.
Some autistic people do go to conventional schools. Whether they get on well there is a completely different thing. But for a lot of people, there aren't any other options. Personally, my attendance at school...
Let's see, in 1982, I was 12 years old. There was not autism school. Actually, there was. Remember the nut house? Remember what they called the nut house or the insane asylum? Or the loony farm, the loony bin? Yeah, those existed all the way up. Even the last one closed in the 90s, I believe.
Was terrible because I would frequently reach a breaking point and I just couldn't go in anymore. I had very frequent meltdowns when I got home from school, and my mental health was at its all-time lowest during my school years. Absolutely. I cried several times watching that documentary about the school that's down south in England for autistic girls. Ooh, I'm gonna cry watching this. Oh. I wish I could have accessed something like that. Yes, I got through school, you can kind of say, without it. I dropped out when I was 17, so I don't know how successful my school experience was compared to my peers, most of whom graduated from university.
You actually went to a typical school and you had no support, and you were neurodifferent.
Just because you managed to get through something without help because you had no other choice doesn't mean that the help wasn't necessary. Once again,
it doesn't mean that you didn't need it and that you shouldn't have had it. Just because you survived doesn't mean that you're okay. And that's one thing that one thing that neurotypical people don't understand. Just because I survived being a corrections officer for 15 years doesn't mean it was healthy for me. Doesn't mean it was helpful, and it doesn't mean that I should do it again, or just because I could survive it again doesn't mean that I should.
As I said in the other video, I'm not trying to equate my experience to Abby or to any other autistic person. When you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. There are absolutely autistic people who will struggle way more in school than I did. But does that mean we leave everybody else with nothing? Oh, some people have it worse than you, so you get no support. Should we apply that to every other condition? Autism is not an illness, that's not what I'm trying to say here, but imagine if we did apply that to illnesses. Oh, sorry, some people have a worse stage cancer than you, so we're not gonna give you treatment. Like, what? That would be ridiculous. That's not really a society that I particularly want to live in.
You actually went to a typical school and you had no support.
You went to school and you had no support, and that was a real shame, actually. And
Yeah, and I didn't have any support either. I didn't get it.
Goodness, more kids are being diagnosed today, so the same thing doesn't happen to them. Then maybe they can go on to get the level of education that they deserve.
And
they put me in the special kid classes, but they didn't call me a special kid. But they put me in the special kid classes, which basically meant I was sitting there almost by myself, usually with like a teacher's aide or something, a student that was trying to get hours. I do my schoolwork like in 2.5 weeks for the entire quarter. Then they would use that as proof that I was being lazy and put me back in class, and I'd get F's again. And then they would say that I was rebelling, and I'd get in trouble for that. And it was all because I couldn't function in a class because there were too many distractions, and it was either going too fast or too slow for me. And it was very rarely at my pace, so I couldn't learn. I was incapable of learning because it was not at my pace. And I think neurotypical people, their minds are more amiable in that respect, and they can learn at the rate that other people teach. And I'm incapable of necessarily learning at the rate that a lot of people teach. I have to learn at my own rate. And if I don't, I'm incapable of learning. And I know that sounds weird.
We're neurodifferent. That means you have a different brain processor.
Different brain processor. I think the word she's looking for here is autistic. Super autistic. We have come up with a word for it, a diagnostic label. Again, we don't need...
Yeah, that's not no CPU. That's a brain processor.
New unscientific labels.
And you were neurodifferent. That means you have a different brain processor.
No, that's a GPU, not a brain processor. A brain processor is an entirely different chip. That's my neurogenic BMD. That's brain.
So social communication, social language were painful and horrible, not your thing, and it probably made life horrible.
Okay, so
Life is just horrible.
I don't really understand this. We're acknowledging here that you do think apparently lower support needs autistic people do struggle and do need support, but then you also said you got through school and you had no support. So which one is it? You struggle, but not enough for it to be meaningful? How much does one need to struggle in order for it to be meaningful? I think it's really important to remember here, as I'm sure Abby's mom knows, there is a lot more to autism than struggling with socializing. What about...
You know what it's all about? It's all about... Who's it about? Uh-huh. That's who it's about right there.
Difficulties with transitions. What about sensory issues? What about meltdowns? I just feel like when Christine just...
Hi, I'm Sam Jordan, Director of Humanitarian Action for the International Rescue Committee. Conflict and constraints on humanitarian aid delivery are causing a massive...
focuses in on the social aspects here, you can make it kind of sound like, oh, but you're just quirky, you're just a bit awkward, you know, it's not really that much of a big deal. But that isn't what autism is.
So those people today are finally getting some acknowledgement, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think knowing is great for your self-esteem in many ways. I am personally so much nicer to myself in my head now that I know. I forgive myself for things. But I didn't get my diagnosis for acknowledgement. I got my diagnosis with the hope that I may one day be able to get the accommodations to finish studying a degree, to continue my education, because I need it. Because being autistic is not just about socializing, and I find the experience of...
I got a diagnosis. I wanted a diagnosis simply for validity, to show people that, particularly like my family and so forth, that what they thought was easy, I struggled with my entire life. And I told them I did, and they always ignored me. So I have proof of it.
Exams, extremely stressful. I had panic attacks.
Basically proof of their abuse, which they didn't intend to do, I know, but it was still nonetheless abuse. And what I mean by that, if someone kicks a dog every day, whether they know it's bad or not, they kick the dog and it's still abuse. And when the dog barks and runs away, be it they run after it to kick it more, at some point in time, where do you know that they had to have known or something at some point in time? There's got to be a line.
In numerous exams, and I become very obsessive with studying around exams to the point where I neglect all of my other needs, and it can become extremely...
And my sister-in-law just about 3 weeks ago died. She lived in this very house. She was 56, and she had interception issues. She didn't pay attention, and she didn't go poo, and she got a bowel obstruction, and it unlifed her. That just happened. We all lived in this house to take care of each other, and she passed because of that.
Unhealthy. I am not just quirky and awkward.
Those people today are finally getting some acknowledgement, and I think that's a good thing, but I look at it as a different thing.
Okay, you might look at it as a different thing, and I know you're saying it's just your opinion, so fine, but your opinion is not really based on anything concrete. Medical professionals would disagree with you.
Because you don't have a deficit, you have a difference. You are neuro...
Yeah, I damn well do have some deficits. You're damn right I have deficits. You're F&A right I have deficits. And that's okay. But we've got to admit that and deal with it. Not just say it doesn't exist or pretend that we don't have deficits. That's ridiculous. And we do have differences too. And sometimes our deficits can be our strengths or whatever, but don't you dare look at me and say I don't have deficits. And I am a low support, well, lower, probably level 2 now, support needs autistic.
Different.
Okay, that was really weird. Wow. Okay.
And Abby and people like Abby and Abby's programs were neurodeficit.
Another thing that I want to note here is I think a lot of people are unhappy with the way Abby's mom constantly insists that her daughter in her mid-20s is neurodeficit. Deficit is just not a very nice word, honest.
Yeah, why deficit? Why does she have to say that? And that's just rude. Why can't she just say autistic? Why does she have to categorize her as neurodeficit? Why does it even matter? What's up?
The definition of deficit is a deficiency or failing, especially in neurological or psychological function. And the word deficiency implies a lack or a shortage or a failure or shortcoming.
Daughter, you're less than human. You just fall short of being a human there, daughter.
Personally prefer the word disability. The CDC definition for disabled is a disability is any condition of the body or mind that makes it more difficult for the person with the condition to do certain activities and interact with the world around them. I understand that Abby's mom thinks Abby struggles more than other autistic people that she's observed. I don't know what Abby's diagnosis is, what her level of support needs are, or whether she has an intellectual disability. That's what you call it in the US. In the UK, we call the same thing a learning disability, and then learning disability means something else over there. And it's really tricky for me to know what to call it in these videos. But I don't want to speculate on Abby's diagnosis at all. That's not appropriate for me to do. But I do want to point out that 2/3 of autistic people do not have an intellectual disability. And lower support needs autistic people have been included.
Okay, so I was right. 2/3.
Under this autism umbrella since the very beginning. Again, I don't want to speculate on the level of support needs he had, but the first person to be diagnosed autistic, Donald Triplett, was a banker who had a degree in French. Does she think he was just neurodifferent? Where would she?
And he just passed this year. Last year. Within the last year. It has not been a year yet since he passed, I don't think. The very first person to be diagnosed with autism. I had a psychiatrist basically say, well, there's nothing to indicate as you get older that there's, autism gets worse or whatever. And he didn't take into consideration any of the comorbidities or anything else. But how would they know about the elderly? When the first person to be diagnosed with autism just passed, just now, just last year, how many elderly autistic people, particularly since we're diagnosing children, do we have? Not a lot. We don't know that much about elderly autistic people. Really?
You want to classify him?
Abby had 20 years of speech and OT and other services just to be able to talk like a neuro-different person already can.
Again, how well somebody can speak is not a measure of how autistic they are. I don't know what.
It has nothing to do with autism. There are many of us that have speech impediments. There are many of us that have, I stutter. Some of us actually even have Tourette's. But it has nothing to do with autism itself. It's just a comorbidity.
Where she's got this from. So I'm not denying that the ability to communicate effectively will have a big influence on somebody's outcomes in life, somebody's ability to succeed within this society, the way it is set up, for sure. However, individuals on the autism spectrum who meet expected language milestones in the first 3 years of life have the same outcomes in adolescence and adulthood as those who are significantly delayed in early language if one compares groups at the same developmental level or IQ. So somebody's ability to speak in their early years does not necessarily influence their life outcomes. I said this.
Their intellectual abilities when they get older. So, in other words, like my son, he didn't speak, like I said, till he probably was almost 6, 7, probably 7. But he was super intelligent. And I never worried about him. I finally told him, I was like, okay, you got to go to school, so you got to learn to say these words. Because I knew he understood us, and he was kind of trying to speak, He just couldn't say certain things. So I had to literally teach him how to use his mouth, tongue, breathing, everything to make certain sounds. No big deal.
already in the last video reacting to Abby's mom, but I do wonder what parents of autistic children who will probably never speak with no amount of speech therapy, no amount of music therapy, how they might feel when they see clips of Abby chatting with her mom, clips of Abby learning to swim, clips of Abby writing and singing her own music, having a romantic relationship, you know, could they not look at that and go, you see, well, she's just neurodifferent and actually my child, they're neurodeficit. What is this competitive aspect? It's really strange.
So the answer is the DSM-5. I think the diagnostic manual the doctors are using needs to be updated and changed, and real specific language needs to be created so that we can honor everybody and get them the help they need, but it's not the same thing. Putting everybody on the autism spectrum to me is not helpful.
And this is where I think we come down to the real problem that a lot of parents of autistic children have. We heard a similar thing from Amber, who is the mother of a very high support needs autistic child. She did an interview with Book Angel recently, and I reacted to that on my channel as well.
I'm going to gatekeep autism, where I don't think if you're awkward or if you think different or if you can't be in a social room that you have autism.
Both Amber and Christine seem to be not happy that the DSM was actually updated in 2013.
Putting an umbrella over all of these things really...
I just had something come up. I'm going a little bit over time anyway, so I need to get off of here, so that's what I'm going to do. I really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much.